After auditing and consulting with 50 plus e-com companies on their optimization and A/B testing programs, I have pretty much tried out every optimization tool out there. Heat map tools, session recording tools, A/B testing platforms, you name it, I have literally tried them all. And today I'm going to share with you the very best of the optimization tools out there so you can optimize your e-commerce store and conversion rates. Let's break this down into core tool categories every e-commerce business needs for proper optimization. Number one is literally web analytics. GA4 is the gold standard at this moment. There is obviously other tools that you can use, and if you're already using other tools, please go ahead. But if you're working with various agencies or with assembling a team to help with web analytics, most likely having something like GA4 in place is going to be the way to go. It's literally great for understanding your customer journey across all the devices that people use to browse on your site. You have a strong event-based tracking for detailed user insights, so you can send all kinds of events that you want to track. Maybe you want to track certain clicks on buttons, maybe you want to track form behavior or other things. Imagination is the limit, so you can literally send any kind of tracking events or anything to GA4 and it will know what to do with it. Also, if you're just looking at like how has GA4 helped in the past, obviously there is would be 1,000 examples, but if you want to understand throughout the site where is it that people are struggling the most, like maybe is it that after adding something to the cart, maybe people are starting to question what it is, then this is something you could typically see in Google Analytics or any other web tracking tool. As long as you have set up various points in the journey, you would typically see, hey, people are dropping off at this specific point, and this is ideally something you should look into further. Obviously, there is a little bit of a drawback, especially with GA4. One, there is seemingly still happening things every couple of weeks, so there might be new things that are coming to GA4, which obviously brings some kind of learning curve with it. But on the other hand, if you have a solid understanding of how to use the tool, you will pretty much be set for the next few years in terms of analytics or in terms of using web analytics to help uncover insights, right? And one more thing, it's not just you can install GA4 and it will already give you all the insights. You really need to set it up properly. And what I recommend typically to do that with is Google Tag Manager, which brings us to tool category number 2. Why is it essential? Well, it's essential for managing tracking pixels. Maybe this also includes your meta pixel, your Google shopping tag, and all these kinds of things. And it basically helps you set up your event infrastructure so that all the various tools that you're using, and this could include GA4, are getting the events they need to work. And also one of the things, because back in the day, what you did when you just needed a new event fired, you would typically go into your code and be like, hey, where is the event triggered? And then you would try send this event manually to something like an analytics platform. Well, with tag management tools like Google Tag Manager, and this is nowadays obviously also gold standard and nothing new, but you can basically just define a trigger in the platform and then have this be sent at runtime into your various analytics tools or platforms, what have you, or your CRM or wherever you're using data. So I don't need to go too deep into it because Google Tag Manager is a tool in of itself that I could talk about for hours. But basically, it really helps you speed things up and go live quicker with new tracking events, even with setting up sometimes things like an A/B testing platform. Although there is drawbacks to doing that via Tag Manager, but we'll get into that in just a second. Like with everything, one of the drawbacks is if you don't have a properly set up infrastructure. This means if you don't have naming conventions, etc. This can quickly lead to a lot of mess. So I highly advise checking out something like Measure School on YouTube and looking at how do you properly name or what are strategies to properly name all your tags, etc. Because that can also make then debugging your tag manager a lot easier. Category number 3, heat maps and session recording tools. I put both into the same bucket because typically the tools overlap, or at least they offer both functionalities. So why is this essential? Well, critical for understanding user behavior on your site is sometimes also seeing the user behavior, because if there was somebody sitting right next to me here and looking at what I'm doing on my screen, they would probably be very confused, but over time that would help them understand why I'm struggling at certain points of of getting a job done, right? So this is something that heat map and session recording tools typically help you uncover. Like, for example, when you already identified a certain element of friction throughout your customer journey using something like GA4, and you want to take a closer look at individual sessions, then something like Microsoft Clarity or a Hotjar, which obviously brings costs with it. Microsoft Clarity is free. These kind of tools can help you understand what is it, or like where specifically, especially also on desktop, if we're talking about mouse movement behavior and stuff like that. But even when things like scroll maps and stuff like that, it can really help you understand where it is on the site that people are struggling. Obviously, that doesn't fully inform about the entire customer journey, but it gives you an idea of what it is that people are struggling with. Obviously, again, some limitations. Hotjar, for example, or things like MouseFlow, they come with plans, right? You don't get it for free. So there is obviously, or typically, like a limited amount of sessions that will be recorded. You don't necessarily have that with Microsoft Clarity, but everything has a price, and with Microsoft Clarity, what you have to look into is how they're using the data to inform their machine learning models, etc. So it's give or take in a way, but if you're really on a budget, Microsoft Clarity, I can highly recommend it. It's been really helpful with a lot of brands, and it's crazy how much value you can get out of a tool that's essentially free. But yeah, can highly recommend it. At least check it out, install it, maybe via Tag Manager or something. So it's super easy and quickly set up, as long as you also then put it into your privacy policy. Especially if you're in Europe, that's a thing. You've probably been waiting for it. We're talking about CRO, about optimization and A/B testing quite a bit on this channel. So one of the tool categories that obviously I need to talk about is maybe the elephant in the room, but A/B testing tools. And testing, a lot of people would say, is probably like the core of a CRO program. Well, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. You can still optimize without A/B testing. But if you want to validate changes before rolling them out and do that on a larger sample, you will likely need an A/B testing tool to do that if you don't want to build it yourself, which I'm assuming you do not. There is a number of tools that I can recommend. One thing out of the way typically depends on quite a few factors. Obviously, your budget, the kind of site you're running, the front end you have, and the platforms you want to integrate with. So depending on a huge amount of factors, or like these kind of factors will influence your choice. But just to name a few, things like A/B Lift, Chameleon, and Optimize, Convert.com, or even like more technical platforms like Eppo or Statsic, where you have it directly integrated with your data warehouse, which is probably, if you're looking at this video, probably not the first step, but still, in any way, there is obviously quite a few tools I can choose from. If I was to make a choice for an A/B testing tool, I would probably make sure that you're not going way over budget, and probably invest also a good deal in people that know how to use the tool, instead of just being overly enthusiastic about all the marketing jazz that some of the tool providers have out there. Because at the end of the day, it's people using the tool that will give you the uplifts or the outcomes that you're looking for. And the tool, at the end of the day, with all of these, right, it's a tool that has to do a job. So I would probably try to balance it somewhat with other costs that you will eventually have when running A/B tests, right? That's also one of the warnings or limitations. Just make sure to keep costs in mind. At the same time, do not forget that when you get a tool, typically it's not ready the next day. So you need to also account for some time as regarding to setup, making sure the platform is set up properly. So you're also counting the right visitors and all these kind of things are working. We have two more categories left. Number 5 is survey and feedback tools. This is an interesting one that I feel a lot of people are forgetting, because we're if you're running a website, it's typically the touch points with your customers or the direct touch points at least are quite sparse. So what I do recommend doing is not wait for customer complaints necessarily to roll in, but to use the opportunity you have on site to talk with your customers, right? Obviously you do that in a way, copy and all these things, but if you have certain kind of questions and you know how to ask the right questions, using something like survey tools, even post post-purchase or throughout the rest of the on-page customer journey. Just use survey tools or feedback tools to get answers to your questions, right? Obviously, asking questions on page comes with a sort of bias, because especially like if you're asking things like, hey, what was it that almost got you to not purchase? Asking someone who just purchased is maybe something you have to keep in mind, that there is a bias because they ended up purchasing. So it might not be super helpful in every case, but yeah, just making sure that you use this source of feedback from like direct feedback from customers is it's crazy. And you can use things like Hotjar surveys, Typeform, and there's many others out there. You just have to check. Maybe if you're using Shopify, there's like a variety of apps also that you can just install and ask questions. In the past, this is probably one of the biggest sources, early stage direct feedback that we get with customers. Yeah, but just make sure you're like not getting your expectations through the roof, and then like it's only 50, maybe 100 people answering your survey. Obviously, it doesn't compare to something like an A/B test where you're also getting like real data, but you just want to maybe sometimes get more qualitative answers to questions you might be having. And also one more thing, because at the end of the day, we're trying to optimize the user experience. So maybe not try to start annoying your users or your customers by asking questions every step of the way. This is something to use sparingly, but use it wisely, right? Number 6, it's less of a tool than maybe an appel to use existing data sources, right? Because especially if you're doing research, you in the beginning you're like, hey, where should I get all this data from? Sure, I mentioned GA4, I mentioned things like a Hotjar or Microsoft Clarity and all these things. Oftentimes, if you want to get insights, you can also leverage existing data sources that you already have, where you don't need to invest into potentially expensive tools, but look at things like your reviews that you have on your shop, right? Of course, typically that's already a tool you have, but using that data to also drive insights or like create insights from data that customers are giving to you on a voluntary basis is something super valuable. And if you only have like a limited amount of reviews on your site, but you're maybe selling on Amazon, guess what? People are oftentimes quite eager to share their opinion on Amazon. So this is something that I always recommend looking into, but also things like obviously customer support tickets, right? What are the concerns that customers are having on your site? Why not just look into that and maybe make that more clear on your website? So generally, one thing I have to say with this, of course, is like data is unstructured typically when you look at customer reviews or support tickets, etc. But using tools like AI and ChatGPT maybe can be super helpful. And this is probably what I would add into category number 6. Just generally use AI as much as possible in areas where it makes sense. And this is typically one area where you can save yourself a lot of time going through unstructured data and make use of data that you have, create valuable insights from it with literally almost no cost. So yeah, if I was to give you a pro tip and combine tools and insights across categories, you could do something like use Hotjar recordings, Clarity for that matter, at places where you already detected drop-off, for example, through GA4 to identify why users are potentially abandoning your cart, right? You could use a combination of survey tools and session recordings to understand maybe why a feature is not properly being adopted. And with all of this, one way to bring it together, of course, is Google Tag Manager to just make sure you have a proper setup on your site. And yeah, I guess with all these tools, at the end of the day, what you make out of it is totally up to you, but I can highly just recommend getting started. Use one of the tools that I start with one, probably like a GA4, then use Tag Manager till you set up your tags and events, and then try to make the most out of that. Don't get too fancy. It's also just about getting started and using the tools. But at the end of the day, I hope this little guide added some value to you or for you. And yeah, so these are the absolute best optimization tools that I've personally tested and used and to help e-commerce companies improve their conversion rates and drive more revenue. But remember, tools are just one piece to the puzzle. And in order to make the most of them, you need a complete strategic experimentation program or A/B testing program, which is why I created a complete step-by-step guide that shows you exactly how to build a strategic experimentation program from scratch using the tools that I just mentioned in this video. It's a free course here on YouTube, and in this free course I'm going to cover everything you need to know about conversion rate optimization, including how to build a robust analytics infrastructure, developing an experimentation strategy that's aligned with your business goals, implementing and analyzing A/B tests effectively, and building and managing a CRO team. This is the exact process that we use at 3TAC to help companies like Head Nutrition, PKWDE, Rosenthal, and many others drive consistent growth through strategic experimentation. Just click on the video right on the screen right here somewhere to watch the full conversion rate optimization guide. It's completely free and will give you all the fundamentals you need to start optimizing your e-commerce store effectively. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content on e-commerce optimization, and see you in the next one.